This is the KnightShift podcast, powered by Black and Gold Banneret, your home for news and analysis from all UCF Knights sports. The KnightShift starts now. Welcome to KnightShift. We got a full house up in here. Jeff Sharon here with you. We've got Eric Lopez. We got the student of the game, Kyle Nash. We've got Bryson Turner in here. Football is here, kids. It is time. Eric Lopez is already angry. His Florida State Seminoles lost to Brent Key and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
First of all, I'm upset because we're another week closer to another Miami Dolphins season. It's going to put me in misery. Yeah, it's pretty much.
It's ended before it began.
Hey, hold on. If we're bringing up the Dolphins, I don't know what you're so mad about, Elo. When you came on the student of the game the other day, I told you outright they would beat the Jags in week 1, okay?
Well, I hope you're right on that, but
week 1 still has to happen.
The unfortunate thing is, even though UCF football season's about to start this Thursday, in some ways, part of their season's already over, and we'll get into that. Why I feel that way. Coming up. That's called the tease. That's called the tease, people. That's called the tease.
Well, it's such an Eric move to be angry when so many other people are like, yay, college football is back. And then
I know. Eric is like Larry Brown. He's only happy when he's unhappy. Anyway.
Y'all ask why I dress up so nice. Doesn't your therapist show up to appointments wearing nice clothing? So everybody wonders why I wear a tie on the KnightShift Live podcast post games. Yeah. It's because I'm the therapist every damn week for Eric Lopez.
Here's what
we'll bring that back this Thursday night coming up.
Here's what we're talking about today. We're going to preview UCF's season opener against the New Hampshire Wildcats. Some injury news. You know how we always feel about injuries. We're a little worried about that. Gus Malzahn had some interesting thoughts about the transfer portal, and there's some possible NCAA policy coming down the line that we'll talk about. Also, some conference realignment news, ladies and gentlemen. It's back.
Yay!
I know you're excited.
Nothing says your product's great on the field when you just bring
Bryson
up off the field.
Will update us on soccer and volleyball. Volleyball is starting up this week, so let's go ahead and dive on in with UCF against the New Hampshire Wildcats in the home opener. Well, the season opener, really. Kickoff is set for 7 o'clock on Thursday night. It'll be on ESPN+. We have Robert Lee and friend of the pod, Rini Ngolia, Eric Lopez, will be on the air on ESPN. The KnightShift podcast's favorite UMass grad, I should say. Shout out to Rini. Okay, well, if you go on to, Kyle, this is your cue, blackandgoldbanneret.com, you will see our opponent preview of the New Hampshire Wildcats, who went 6-6 last year this is one of my favorite things about college football is that my theory is that college football is indeed a flat circle. New Hampshire, alma mater, undergraduate of one George O'Leary. In addition, they are, of course, probably the most famous coaching product is Chip Kelly, who had Scott Frost on his staff, so another UCF connection. Let's talk about this will be the first ever meeting between these two. New Hampshire not projected to be particularly good, although they do have a pretty good offense by FCS standards. They were fourth in the country in passing offense last year in FCS, tied for 10th in total offense. Problem was they couldn't stop a traffic cone if they tried. They gave up in the 6 games they lost. They gave up at least 29 points in each of them,
which is weird because their defensive ends were former All-Americans before going into that.
Yeah, right. Including and one of their defensive linemen, actually, their only guy on the roster from the state of Florida, actually went to Osceola High School. He's a Central Floridian. And I do mention that in the preview on blackandgoldbanneret.com. There you go. So you're much better at this than me.
Hashtag sharing.
They also lost a quarterback who was 3rd in the country in passing yards last year. And he went to the University of Minnesota.
Right.
So their quarterback this year is a guy. The kid's name was Max Brosmer. So in comes the new quarterback, Seth Morgan, who played at VMI for 4 years and then played at some D2 school named Shepherd University in West Virginia last year. But this kid's thrown for 7,800 yards in 5 years, 52 touchdowns over the course of his career. So, and I always get worried about these quarterbacks who come in and are like just an unknown quantity. But anyway, all that aside, look, we should handle this game, right? So, Kyle, other than everyone's get out of here healthy, what's the objective? And win, of course.
Yeah, and I asked Coach Malzahn about that, and obviously the target is going to, and we alluded to this, I think, last week on the Night Shift podcast, and that's a matter of eliminating those mental errors, right? Let's get rid of the penalties. Let's make sure we don't turn the ball over. If you ask KJ Jefferson, who also spoke today, making sure he's smart about taking physical contact. He's going to lay a little punishment down because that's just kind of what he does.
Yeah.
But to do so carefully, he had mentioned, I should say, he reiterated, we already have a short up on the Black and Gold Better YouTube channel where he had mentioned that is something that's a focus of his. I asked him about his philosophy in issuing punishment as a quarterback. But with all that being said, that's really what it was, is to get the mental stuff right. And listen, no offense to any Knowlers that may or may not be on this panel. I actually asked Coach Malzahn if week 0 helped kind of send the message to his team that they're vulnerable. And Coach, since he arrived here, he had talked about the landscape of college football changing. He never saw anything quite like this. I know, because I asked him. But he continued to reiterate that parity is more of a thing than it's ever been in college football, and I think the 12 team playoff is going to show evidence of that when we get to that point nationally, of course.
Eric, I know you're just absolutely riveted by this game.
This is nothing says college football like FCS versus FBS games. I love those. Look, they should want this. Is the goal for this game is you do want to blow this team out, put your will in. Like, you want to, both the offensive line and the defensive line and whatever's left of it, to dominate both sides of the ball. Because if you want to be relevant in the Big 12, I think Kyle would at least agree with this. You have to put your physical well. And the one thing you did learn from the Florida State-Georgia Tech game is if you win the battle of the trenches,
run the ball.
Yeah. You don't
as
need,
Brent Key said.
It doesn't matter what schemes you run or spread or everything. You can run any nonsensical schemes you want. The game will always be decided on the trenches. And right. UCF has to establish that against an FCS opponent and give them some confidence, especially on the defensive side. Ted Roof, a new defensive scheme. They're going to be more aggressive. Let's see how that looks like. And I do think, even though I don't expect him to do a lot, I do think KJ Jefferson has to show some nice throws and not look like, because one of the things I think you watch the Florida State game, you're left there with DJ Ugly, and I'm calling him Ugly. He looked like a shot fighter. I'm going to go boxing term as a quarterback. You don't want to see that.
Yes,
don't besmirch DJ or DL Hughley like that, Eric. I dare.
The way he throws vertically. My God. But he looks like a shot quarter. He looks like a shot quarterback from years at Clemson and Oregon State, all the flaws. So from KJ, you don't want to see any of that, in other words. And you want to see, like, okay, this is why he is here. So I think there are little things within this game that you've got to look for to see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, Coach said it too, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, that these two games specifically, obviously, there are two main reasons here that I think should also be established. One, you're going to see more of these tune-up style games, if you don't think there's already plenty already, in an era where transfers have become rampant, because there is no preseason. Technically speaking, I know Elo would call this a preseason game, but technically speaking, on an official basis, there is no preseason. And this is how bigger programs, power programs will say, establish a preseason game is playing something like this. And what Gus talked about when I asked him how his approach to evaluating in week one changes with so many transfers coming in. The coaches have been involved in the season and involved with things like that. Now it's about player-led teams and making this a player-led team. Coach Malzahn mentioned his championship teams, his better teams were all player-led. I would also submit, gentlemen, that 2017 and 2018 for the Knights were player-led teams.
2017 definitely was. We know
and listen, from what I saw at the time, I know I wasn't with the Banneret at the moment, but seeing Tito and Wyatt run those Wyatt Miller run those teams the way that they did, being the voices of both sides, like that too was a player-led team. I mean, after all, I mean, Kenzie was still there too, obviously, but like with all that going on, it was a player-led team as well, and that's how they got a undefeated regular season, right? So I think those elements hold true, and using these two games to shore up that communication piece and let those guys lead at full speed is what coach is looking for.
For you degenerates out there, the line is 41.5 according to College Football News.
Gone down. It was 42.5 at one point.
Oh my God. What is going on? Now this brings us to the one blemish on what so far has been a pretty, thankfully, uneventful preseason. Has to do with John Walker, Kyle Nash. What's the latest on that?
So, listen, from the nature of it, if you saw the picture of it from the Instagram story on his account or from out there, on the socials when it was found, credit to Stevie Leonard out there, that who I saw.
Knights 247, yeah.
Yeah. Just seeing the state of the knee and what was on it, it wasn't going to be fixed quickly. From the scuttlebutt I heard, today, just talking around with people, at one point, the thought was he might be out for the year, but certain imaging, MRIs, what have you, have made it seem like it may not be quite that severe. But reading between the lines, coach obviously keeping it close to the vest, as he tends to do with injuries like this. They're hoping to get him back before the end of the season, was how he put it.
Yeah, he did. He had a lower body injury, I think a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be out for an extended period of time. Hopefully we'll get him back before the season's out. I'll keep you updated as it gets closer and all that.
Obviously, you don't want to lose a player. But if there's going to be a place where they were already an embarrassment of riches, Jeff Sharon, it was at that defensive tackle spot.
Really?
Yes, really.
Oh, I strongly disagree. Strongly disagree with that.
I want to hear Kyle's case, and then I want to hear your case, Eric. Go ahead, Kyle.
First of all, the case has been made time and again on blackandgoldbanneret.com. If you read any of night class, the interior of the line was shorn up if it wasn't out there more than 35 minutes. Ad nauseum, that was said, sir. If you have a problem with Ricky Barber and Lee Hunter.
I mean, Ricky Barber, the same Ricky Barber that was a captain a year ago and it's not a captain this year, didn't have a good year last year, that Ricky Barber?
Who was fighting injury last year, but cool, if you want to have that.
Oh, well, guess what, though? We don't know if he's – we'll see.
Let's pretend that's of the 5-alarm fire you want it to be. I remember very distinctly that Coach Kenny Martin, when I talked to him at the media day for the football team, which is also up on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. By the way, thank you for the opportunity for all these pings, Eric Lopez. If nothing else, I got to thank you for that. But I had mentioned, you have these guys, Ricky Barber, Lee Hunter, John Walker, and I asked him a question, and he stopped me. He said, listen, if you're going to mention those other guys, you aren't complete until you talk about Matt Alexander. And Alexander is a good player that's been up and coming. You don't see him a lot because he's in these guys' shadows. And that's not a joke about them being large men, but now he has an opportunity to shine and might silence critics such as yourself. Devon Dotson, the guy who's going to fill in for Johnny Walker.
Dalen
Dotson, thank you. Has played quality ball as a transfer. He may not be John Walker, but who is? But if I got to go 4 deep for a drop-off, I'm not that concerned.
Don't forget, also listed on his depth chart, don't forget Tyreek Robinson, who's 6'2", 320, freshman, but still. All right, Elo, why is Kyle wrong?
And he's laughing because he knows he has an answer.
Oh, that's what happened.
Wow!
Kyle,
Help.
you're right. Eric knows.
Help me out.
Eric knows he's in a
No.
corner when
Hold
he
on.
starts laughing.
So, can I ask you a question? Were any of these players on defensive watch list awards like John Walker was? I'm waiting. Let me know. Anybody?
Ricky Barber
Anybody?
was actually. Lee Hunter was.
When?
Yes.
When? This year? This year?
Yeah.
Wow, they give a lot of watch lists.
Eric, point of order. This is coming from the guy who hates all preseason awards, but carry on.
Here's my point.
Please.
With all due respect to all the others, those defensive young players you mentioned, none of them are at the level of John Walker. Not even close.
Who's arguing?
John? Well, apparently you are, because you think John Walker could be replaced in 5 minutes.
No, now you're rewinding what I said, Eric.
You just said he's very replaceable. We've got all these players.
No,
Kyle,
the word's
Kyle,
very
he does this
replaceable.
all the time,
Not-
trust me.
and I won't let him get away with it, Jeff. I got this. Okay, I said there is a drop off, but
You
again,
think?
if I have to go 4 deep to find it, I'm feeling okay.
I think there's a drop off between John Walker and the backup. That would be like saying, "Hey, KJ Jefferson's hurt. We're fine. We have the same level."
No,
Sure it is.
well-
It's the same.
Okay, let me interject here, Kyle. What you're saying is no. You're giving the Moneyball argument, right? No, you can't replace John Walker, but perhaps you could replace him in the aggregate. Is that
you
right?
cannot replace KJ Jefferson in the aggregate. I know that ish.
No, I mean John Walker.
Correct. I know you do, but I felt compelled to straighten out the analogy made there by the Sultan of Stickball.
Okay, I like that. Here's my point. You know this very well, Kyle. We've been friends now. How long, Kyle?
Oh gosh, what, since 17, right?
This might be the most disappointed I've been in you in our entire friendship ever.
Oh my god!
Because you of all
Found our
people,
clip for YouTube right there.
you of all people, pay attention to the line of scrimmage more than anybody,
Sure.
which I like. You know as well as anybody that no one caused more attention last year and more havoc than John Walker. He's going to present guys, 2 guys coming in from the opposite of opposition. He's a guy you have to game plan for as an offensive coach. You have to know where he is. You have to block him. You may have to put 2 guys on him. That's gone now. That's gone. And there's no one at that level. Now, I will say this. You nailed. I'll give you this.
Uh-huh.
It's up to Ricky Barber now. Ricky Barber
And Lee Hunter.
they got to raise their level
Sure.
significantly.
Okay.
Otherwise, this team's going to struggle against one. I think the Big 12 title is gone now. It's gone. You don't replace.
Oh, my God.
Because this is the thing. When you're in the Big 12 now, you're no longer in the American. You're no longer in CUSA. If they were in the American, could they afford a loss? Yes, you can. But in the Big 12, it's a game of margins. A game of margins here and there. A player loss here or there can make the difference between a good year and a great year. Would you not agree with that?
I don't even know why we're going to show up to play New Hampshire now.
Jeff, let me talk you and Elo both off the ledge. It is an expanded playoff. Maybe it's accurate that the Big 12.
We're not making the playoff. Don't worry.
Thank you. In true Noller fashion.
Hey, any players or coaches who are listening to that, please write that down on the
let me know. It's a 1-bid league for the Big 12. I hate to break it to you. Win the Big 12 or you're not going to be in the tournament.
Hey, listen, if Georgia Tech is beating people,
I'm not going to disrespect John Walker like you guys are. That guy's a stud inside there.
Who said
he's gonna play in the National Football League, and I mean the real NFL roster, not like a practice squad, an NFL roster on Sundays.
Go ahead and accuse me of disrespecting John Walker.
You just said he can run for.
You're the one who's disrespecting both Ricky Barber and Lee Hunter.
No, I'm not. I'm being realistic. I'm being realistic with them. I don't think they're at the level of a John Walker.
To Eric's point, it does bring the issue of depth, because we always talk about the issue of depth. And look, even if John Walker wasn't the initial planned starter, and the starters were planned to be Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber the entire time, losing John Walker as a depth piece to the both of them, who you can switch out so that way Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber aren't as stressed, is certainly something that is, I wouldn't say nervous, but I would say is like, okay, I might.
Well,
I'll remember that.
I'm gonna put put the onus on a couple of other guys here. All right. What did John Walker do that he was truly excellent at? I thought he was an excellent pass rusher. He for his size,
pretty good at taking up space. The problem is linebackers couldn't finish.
Right. No, but the guys who I think, really obviously, Lee and Ricky have to step up. But the guys who I'm really interested to see now, this is an opportunity for Malachi Lawrence on the outside. This is an opportunity for the new guy from Miami, Nigel Kelly.
I mean, this was Malachi's opportunity, even with Walker on the roster. Let's not
right. But now it's like, okay, you got to pick up you got to pick up the weight.
But again, I'm going to have to scold you the same way that Coach Martin scolded me. Y'all still be walking right past Matt Alexander.
Oh, I'm not. Listen, I'm not walking past Matt one bit.
Who made his point to back the Noller and worry about depth that completely eliminated Matt Alexander from his analysis.
You know what they say about depth? You have it until you don't. And you know how you don't lose depth? Injuries. You already got a major one. Like I would argue John Walker, if we did a top 5 list of players you cannot afford to lose, he would be in that top 5 list. Now, absolutely.
Ones that are great.
I think John Walker is great. I think John Walker is their top 5, top 10 player, period, on this roster. He's a stud. I don't. What games are you watching? But here's where I will say this. Here's the good news. If you're going to have this injury, if you're going to lose Walker, you'd rather lose him now than October or during the season. Well, if there's one positive, it's that.
If I may interject one detail here. Matt Murschel reported from the Orlando Sentinel, shout out to Matt, reported that Coach Gus Malzahn said the Knights will be without defensive standout John Walker for a, quote, extended period as he recovers from a I love this terminology.
Lower
body injury that he suffered a few weeks ago. He didn't suffer it on Friday or something. Okay.
That's a fair point.
Now, that's a few weeks to recover. So does that hopefully that whatever happened, it pushes up.
Let's not. I don't want to get into the young man needs to get himself healthy. Yes. He's in line to make a lot.
Obviously.
He's going to make money at the next level. So he needs to worry about that. And and correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, didn't just kind of mention he hope to have him back at the end of the season. It wasn't like he's coming.
Yeah.
Whatever the timetable, we wish for the best for him. But you're again, and I'm not saying, listen, I really do believe John Walker can make a difference in one game. This could be a 9-win team, 10-win team. It could drop to an 8-win team. I think he's that good. I really think he's that good.
I will agree that a 1-win difference with or without him is on the table.
Which in the Big 12 that's everything.
I agree with you. Yes. This some of the other stuff that was a bit more aggrandized, not so much, but the statement of he's the difference between 9 and 10, absolutely accurate.
Yeah. And that's the difference between a good year and not such a good year. That could be the difference.
I think 9's a good year either way, but we could have that conversation later.
Oh, no, but I'm saying yes, I agree. 9 is good. 8, now we're getting into that thin line of whether it's a good year or not. Now to me, that's the number. That's the line. 8, and then anything less than 8, now I think it's a below disappointing season. But,
all right. So let's again, it starts on Thursday night. We will all be there. What are our plans for this game, boys? Let's just make sure everybody knows exactly where we're going to be. Bryson, you're going to be there, and Kyle, you're going to be there.
Yes.
All right.
And then we'll be doing Night Shift Live. Night Shift Live.
Are.
Yes.
Me and our good friend Jake.
Was that a Freudian slip, Kyle?
No, that was a stutter. You're giving me too much credit.
It'll be me and Jake. We'll be doing the Night Shift Live. Kyle and Bryson will join us from the. I'm just happy because when Bryson said, "Hey man, you got to come in. This is an important, get into the StreamYard." I was expecting Kyle to announce that he was going to be the walk-on and play on the defensive front to help the loss of John Walker. And I'm like, hey, we're going to lose him on our staff. I mean, I thought that was what you were going to announce, Kyle. So I'm glad that at least that they have enough depth where you don't have to walk on.
I feel better. Yes, thank you.
As we press forward on that,
wait, I got to ask you one question, Jeff. Now that I agree that John Walker is worth 1 game's difference potentially, am I less disappointing than I was earlier?
Yes, you've made up for it.
I had
Yes,
Chuck. I had Chuck. Let me have it.
It's fair. I am curious. Are we making? Yeah, I mean that's like. Are we making season predictions? Win loss? I think. Is that what we're doing?
I should hope we are.
We'll get there later this week. All right.
This
Couple
week.
other things that Gus mentioned in the presser that we want to get to. One that I thought was particularly interesting, having to do with the transfer portal and the possibility that they might be eliminating the spring portal. Eric, I know the book on Gus is that he is the transfer portal whisperer, and there's plenty of evidence to prove that. Where did he stand on? First of all, what's the proposal, and then where do you think?
So the proposal now is that they want to get rid of the spring portal for football. You know, football, obviously you have the spring you have the portal in December.
Right.
And then you had one in the spring.
Which everyone loved, let me tell you.
Which, as you saw, with UCF in particular, but others as well, there were a lot of players that transferred out after spring games. And I don't know what the number is, but UCF got themselves a number of players after the spring. So now there's a proposal to eliminate that and just have the one portal opening, which is in December for football, which I am for. Every other sport only has one window. I never understood why football needed two windows, except coaches probably push that because they can update their roster constantly. But I don't think that's good. I mean, I think you can get your roster in December because otherwise, yeah, you're always going to run into players trying to bail after spring games if they know they're not going to start. So I've never been a fan of the spring portal for football. Is that?
I have a question on this.
Sure.
Okay, so right now, I just want to go over the rule right now. Currently, there's one 30-day transfer window that goes from December 9th to January 7th. That's after the completion of the conference championship games.
During bowl season. Just call
during
it
bowl season, that's right. Yeah. The second portal that they're looking at eliminating is the one that goes from April 16th to the 30th. My question, Eric, is, and I'm going to put this to you, Kyle, too. Is there any talk of them moving the winter portal back until after the bowls and the playoff? Because I know that that's a real point of contention.
There has been some conversation on that. There's been talk of maybe January as a
after
possibility.
The national title game.
Something. Well, the national title game now with the expanded playoff would be around middle of January. So there's been some talk. I don't know though if there's anything concrete on the horizon. But perhaps if they do away with the spring portal version, maybe that's the next step after that they look into from that standpoint. We'll see.
Forgive me on that, because I think the hard part about that is, okay, look at the dates, December 9th through January 7th. That's winter break. That's the transition from the fall academic semester to the spring academic semester. So if you're going to transfer from school A to school B, ideally you would want to do that during a break from school. If you push it back, well, you're stuck at that one school for, for that period of time. And so, I mean, it's easy. It's everyone says, oh, it's free agency. It's not free agency. It's still tied to the academic calendar.
Well, which is why I don't think the portal itself will change in December at the end of the day. I think if they change anything, it might be the high school signing class deadline maybe gets changed up, moved to January. Because I think that's really more what the coaches have issues with, is the fact that you've got to deal with the portal and signing day and potentially bowl game or now playoff as a coach in football. That's the issue.
I know they've wanted the early signing period, but I feel like when they got it, it was too late.
Sure.
Right.
So I think I wonder if that will be the more likely one to move, because you're right. You can't just move the portal to January because you got to enroll people and things like that. So I think that stays in December, but it's tough because, and this is not just a football issue. College basketball coaches are livid in a lot of ways because the portal for basketball starts when the NCAA tournament starts.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, it's well known Rick Pitino and St. John's turned down the NIT invite in part because he wanted to focus on the transfer portal. So that's a problem. And it's the same problem in softball.
Problem for
and
who,
baseball.
Let's be honest.
I mean, if you're a program that's reliant on your power broker of questionable moral code to continue to keep you a power broker in the sport, yeah, it's a problem for you.
Well, it is a problem though. In a lot, there are problems. I mean, I've heard many stories in various sports where if the portal's open, there's probably players on the roster that are already thinking more about, hey, I'm going to enter the portal. Once I do, where am I going? Versus, hey, let me help my team in practice here as they're playing in the postseason or the bowl game or the tournament. I think that is a legitimate concern from a chemistry. It's just it creates weird vibes, not to mention allegations of tampering that's going on. So it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a constant, obviously. But like,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think we need to touch on too. First of all, two things. One, who has ever heard the coach say, hey, what do you think the college football calendar right now? Oh, let me tell you, I can't get enough of this stuff where I am recruiting all the time. Not only do I have to worry about people from out of state across the country, and now even in freaking Australia, if I want a punter, woo, I got to recruit my own dudes on that calendar. I am stoked. That has not happened, Jeff Sharon. Okay. And by the way, you notice how I used that first point to lean into my second point. Hearing, you'll forgive this dubious combination of Urban Meyer and Nick Saban talking about having less time to spend with their own players in a world where recruiting your own players is something that you have to do more now than ever before is a huge deal. The removal of this spring portion of the calendar, and I don't know the dates like Bryson and Elo do. Credit to you guys for keeping up with it. I just can't. But removing the spring portion of that calendar gives them more of that opportunity to recruit their guys, to talk to them, in part of the team building process, such that it is. So, and by the way, it was brought up to Gus today at the availability, and he said he was for that adjustment on the calendar. He's like, he didn't want to, lay out what his ideal calendar was, but he sees a positivity in eliminating the spring.
I have my own thoughts on how to solve that problem that Urban Meyer was talking about team building and all that kind of stuff, and the recruiting and all that, but no one likes it. And so,
boy, here we go.
Well, I'm telling you, no one likes it. Okay, you want to know what it is? I'll tell you.
You're just going to leave us with that?
I'm guessing here.
Shrink the scholarship limit. Why do you need 85 players?
Amen, brother. But they won't do it. But I agree with you. I agree.
It should be 50.
You talk about sizes, Jeff. So in the very same article that was talking about the spring transfer elimination, they actually talked about how the part of the controversy of eliminating the spring transfer window has to do with the fact that the House v. NCAA case is actually going to necessitate the shrinking of roster sizes from around 120, which is normally what a lot of power conference teams have, to
120. Like,
it goes from 120 to 105. And so the controversy is like, hey, those cuts are probably going to end up happening next spring and into the summer when the change takes effect. And so if the spring transfer portal is gone, then what are these players that are going to get cut going to do? So
there's not going to be a shortage of schools that will be happy to take Division I football players. Let me tell you.
Well, and that very same point, if I may, Jeff, kind of works against your old man yelling at the cloud response of there should be 50 scholarships. These other scholarship players that are there are getting developed on, let's say, a power team's dime, let's say an SEC team's dime, and then they leave. And then somebody else who needs them, maybe, I don't know, the UCF, recruits them.
New Hampshire.
We can listen, we could scale the calendar. I mean, I speak more specifically to guys that have come here from SEC schools in the past. Perhaps Javon Baker comes to mind. Perhaps currently Ethan Barr or Corby Hutz. All of them come to mind, right? So those, I would be careful as somebody who purveys a UCF site such as you do, taking those, freely trained.
Well, here. I mean, I've said they should. I mean, I think football has way too many scholarships. But what they will tell you is development, like Kyle mentioned, What they won't tell you is they want as many scholarships because it gives them more room for error. And if you lessen that, now they're freaking out, and now you might miss out on more.
By the way, here we are covering a program that, and Kyle, I know you're going to make a point here. I just want to say this.
Oh, no, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Here we are covering a program that would not exist probably at the Division 1A/FBS level had scholarship limits not been reduced from 105 in the 80s down to 95 in the early 90s and finally to 85 at approximately the time when UCF joined Division 1 FBS. And what have we seen since then? A boom of programs at the Division 1 level that get that kind of funding. Because, I mean, us, USF, FAU, FIU, I know Eric likes to make fun of them, but they do exist. And they exist because those 10 to 20 players who would have been hoovered up by Miami, Florida, Florida State, and whoever else is nearby, all of a sudden needed a different home. And guess what?
Marquette Smith. Marquette Smith is Marquette Smith is the perfect example. He went to Florida State, didn't pan out there, came to UCF.
Lake Howell's own Marquette.
Yeah. Right, and he's a stud. I mean, I think Marquette Smith probably is on your Mount Rushmore of UCF running back. So,
really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm mad at it. I'm fascinated.
But, I agree. Jeff, people do like it. I like it. Kyle doesn't mind it. I mean,
it's one of the few things. It's one of the few things Mom and Dad agree on.
But I think, unfortunately, I don't see it happening because football coaches, they'll flip out. They'll lose their mind. They think they'll be the end of the world. They won't know what to do. Even though NFL coaches seem to figure it out with 50-some players, but colleges can't figure it out.
In fairness, Elo, right now you're absolutely right that they do. Give some people some time to live in this space.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that will lessen.
And by the way, you reduce the scholarships. That's money that could help you in the revenue that you're going to be sharing with athletes potentially, and or other sports as well. God forbid.
Yeah. I should mention for those who are just a little note for accuracy, those who are curious, NCAA FCS schools have 63 scholarships. Division 2 has 36. Division 3, no one. So that's worth mentioning. NAIA has 24, by the way. So, by the way, this before we go to a break, one last little bit here of realignment news.
Speaking of
breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, the Big 12 is exploring the idea of bringing UConn on board. This is according to CBS Sports, reading this straight from their website. Big 12 presidents were briefed Monday about the possible addition of UConn to the league without taking action. CBS Sports has learned the league's lack of unanimity on the issue requiring going to. Okay. The idea behind this is UConn, they would add UConn for the, I believe it's 2026 as for in all sports except football. Remember, UConn is an independent in football, and they remember the Big East in everything else. And then they would add football. They would add they would obviously really want UConn to invest in football. Where have we heard this before? And then bring UConn football into the fold in 2031.
By the way, Jeff, to add a little spice to that, there are actually contingencies that have to be met for them to be admitted in that 2031 year. There are certain what's this word? Thresholds or cap marks that they have to actually clear to be successfully.
Right. Yeah. Now, I got a couple things on this, but first I want to talk to you. I want to know, Eric, your thoughts on this, because I know how much you love UConn.
You and
what does this indicate for you?
Well, first of all, you and I were in a conference room. If you remember, I forget when the American and ESPN announced their extension. Remember that? It was Mike Oresco and Magnus, who, by the way, now is pretty important, powerful person he's become at ESPN since then. You and I sat in a conference room what school the media kept asking questions and complaining about, what does this mean for if we're on ESPN Plus about us and what? Who did the most crying and whining?
Oh, yeah, right off the bat, the one school out of all the schools in the American who was, let's say, visibly displeased was the University of Connecticut.
Right, and then all the outcry, like, we just don't fit in the American. We're rivals in the Big East. That's why they left to the Big East. Financially, we just can't afford this. But now all of a sudden, they want to go to the Big 12. What a bunch of hypocrites. The biggest full of crap. My God. You know what's on the backyard of a UConn campus, Kyle and Jeff and Bryson? A lot of manure that they've been spelling for years.
Maybe that's where the conflict trophy's hidden in a pile.
Right there. It's actually probably the football stadium where they have a lot of manure, garbage, tile play of football there.
No.
So I think it's hypocritical that they're. Now, here's why this is happening. For why UConn is doing this. Because they realize with revenue sharing, you got to make all revenue and all this. Oh, hey, we kind of need football. It turns out we need football a little bit. Give us some time.
Fun fact.
Yeah. Oh, what do you know? Football can make revenue.
What do you know?
Gee, what do you know? You just figured that out. Oh, we'll be independent. So you have that. And then Brett Yormark is obsessed with making this the superpower in college basketball. Because
this is on brand, isn't it?
Well, because I think the end game is to sell the Big 12 package separate from football and the other sports. It's to have its own package deal, like football does. I think that's a big selling job. We can debate whether that is a great idea or, I don't know if that's a great idea. I don't think the market's there for college basketball. I think the big disagreement is the current deal that the Big 12 has in their media rights. Is it because of just football? Or just football and basketball? And I think that's where the disagreement lies. I would say that Brett Yormark feels that they can get a big package with basketball. I think a lot of the media rights would tell Brett, no. When we agreed on this current media rights deal, basketball was included. That's why you're making as much money as you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't make as much with football. Who knows? But I think that's where all of this is coming to, in part as well, to survive this landscape that we're in against the superpowers that are known as the SEC and the Big Ten.
Do we think that, because it's been publicly reported that the Big 12 has been flirting with Gonzaga for a while, even though they don't have a football program. Do we think that gets a violent shove into Sirius now?
No, I think they're waiting. Like Kyle Nash has been waiting. When does the ACC implode? And when that implodes, who does the Big 12 get? I.e., maybe you're not going to get. I don't know if you'll get Florida State and Clemson. Maybe you will. Who knows? Maybe you get Louisville. Maybe you get others. That's the other shoe to drop. And I think we're a couple of years away from that.
See, I think that was what my spidey sense went off hearing UConn, thinking, okay, Brett Yormark, basketball. This to me, Kyle, is an indication that Yormark's crosshairs are firmly set on whatever ACC teams get left behind whenever the Clemson, Florida State et al. Situation gets ironed out. Because I don't think you're not going to sell out for just UConn and include their football product and push that out. Oh, in 7 years we'll have that, right? I think he's got his crosshairs set on possibly schools like, I don't know, Syracuse,
North Carolina,
one or two of the North Carolina schools.
Yeah, I mean,
whichever ones don't join hands with Clemson and Florida State, wherever they go.
Correct. Like if let's say it's Louisville and Syracuse, again, basketball brands.
Yep.
That can also contribute on the football side. And I think when you get to the media rights deal in 2031, Duke. I think he wants to sell. Duke could be that other one. So, because I think North Carolina is going to be the most. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to throw themselves for North Carolina. That's the big prize.
Yeah, not to mention North Carolina can't join the Big 12 because then they would look too much like the Citronauts. But anyways.
All right.
Got him.
Thank you. I'll let that sink in.
Aaron, put the train back on the tracks for me, please.
Thank you. But so I do think his goal is when you get to 2031, you have your football package and a basketball package to make up that revenue to make up with the SEC and the Big Ten. The question why I think this could backfire, the concern would be though, Greg Sankey's also whispered about this. You don't think the SEC can sell their basketball package too? Especially if they get North Carolina or the Big Ten. That's why I think North Carolina, not Florida. See, if Florida State fans don't get this, Clemson don't get this, they're not the prize in the ACC to the SEC and the Big. The reason is North Carolina is the prize because they're not in those markets. Plus the Jordan, Nike brand there. That is huge.
Over and above. Yeah.
Tar Heel State. So that's the one.
North Carolina is a giant public school. Obviously,
Monster.
Basketball is a thing. And also let's give Carolina some credit about the investment that they've made in football over the past 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
It's good enough. It's fine.
I mean, listen, maybe their quarterback prospects in the NFL have been dramatically overrated, as I've said many times on the Student of the Game podcast.
But that doesn't matter.
But they still are coveted, yes.
So I think that's where, and I think we're going to start, Dennis Dodd, I was going to give this to Kyle for his birthday in the future, was that Dennis Dodd article where he predicted that ESPN would decline the extension on the ACC. They have a right to extend this deal to 2036. In theory, they could decline. He predicted that they would turn it down next year, which means that deal would run out in 26-27 in the ACC, which would really help Florida State and Clemson as far as how much they would have to pay.
Absolute chaos, Eric Lopez. Yes.
So look for that date, 26 or 27. If you're an anti-ACC person like Mr. Nash has been, I think that's the timeline where we're going to see the next big realignment pieces. But I think Brett's trying to keep up with the SEC and the Big Ten because I know you both disagree on this. Big 12 is going to be chasing the SEC and the Big Ten's tail when it comes to the football playoff. If you look at the projections, SEC at a minimum will get 3 to 4 bids every year. The Big Ten's going to get 3 to 4 bids every year. It's a lock.
I would say 4 for the SEC, but go ahead.
Easily. Could be 5, depending on how things break.
That's higher, but yeah, anyway, sorry.
But that's, depending on how other things break out. But you look at the Big 12, it's going to be hard for them to get even 2 teams in.
Yeah, it would be easier for them to get 2 teams than for Cincinnati to make the top 4 back when it was a 14 playoff. I
actually disagree with that. I actually think it'll be harder. I think it's harder. At least this year, only look at the Big 12. Look at the Big 12. The Big 12 better teams better change their non-conference philosophy if they want to get more than 1 or 2 bids in the playoff. Because it's awful.
They can't do yet because there's so many.
Not yet, but I'm saying down the road. But here's the point. Even if you know how you make up for all that though? By 10 teams in the men's basketball tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting that many. How do you do that? By having the most superpower basketball conference ever.
You start adding the likes of like UConn and whatever else comes out of the ACC. You're getting 14 teams into the field.
I mean, I don't mean to be this guy, Elo, but didn't they already get damn near 10 teams in the tournament this past year?
Yeah, they had 8. They had 8. A couple. I personally don't think this is good for UCF basketball. I know that's a disagreement there. It is good for attendance. I just don't know how the heck UCF's going to make the tournament unless they let everybody in from the conference, because you're going up against programs like UConn that I will say spend a ton of money on both men's and women's basketball. A lot. And you're going up against schools that spend a lot of money on basketball. And I just don't believe UCF will do that in the future because we are a football school, and I totally get that. So I don't know if it's great for UCF basketball from a competition standpoint on the court, although business-wise you could argue yes, because you should be able to draw more attendance. Case in point with the recent news that they've sold out, obviously, a record season ticket.
There you go.
See, and 2 months to go, by the way, record season tickets. By the way, Elo, we questioned one Johnny Dawkins in UCF basketball last year, wondering if they'd even make double-digit wins total, not in the conference, and we were silenced rather authoritatively, if I did.
No, agreed. But can they make the NCAA when these giants in the sport?
Well,
that's hard unless you get rid of the little guy, which is what these big power conferences are trying to do.
Because the conference is what it is. Here's what I'm saying. somebody somewhere, kind of like FSU did 2 years ago when they came into UCF and UCF crushed them, right? We're missing what? All their front court? There's going to be a year when somebody who should be really good falls off because reason X, okay? And UCF is showing me that soon there'll be a good enough program to fill that gap.
Right,
So,
but if you add more powerhouses, just by base
it does make it more difficult. I'm not here to say impossible.
Yeah. All right. Well, UConn, unbelievable.
Welcome back.
Civil conflict. Just keeps haunting us.
Eric DeSalvo, I hope you still have that trophy laying around in the rack.
He doesn't. He alleges he doesn't. Well, I've heard the story different.
It's around there. It's around there somewhere. I've seen it floating around.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay, Bryson, when it comes to the conflict trophy, I want this idea frozen. Let it go.
We'll never let that go.
Well, as long as
Reddit CFB
realignment rumors, it's not going to go away.
The CFB subreddit won't let us ever let it go. All right, quick breather. We'll be right back. We're going to talk. We're going to catch up real quick on soccer, volleyball, and some UCF news regarding the Little League World Series. I think you're going to like this. Stick around. We'll be right back. For all the latest news and analysis from every UCF sport, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, your home for the UCF Knights on SB Nation. We bring you all the latest news and in-depth analysis from across Knight Nation, from football and hoops to golf and tennis. If you want to stay on top of all things UCF, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, powered by SB Nation. We're back here on KnightShift. Jeff, Bryson, Kyle, and Eric. We got some news from the Little League World Series. Shout out to the Lake Mary All-Stars, who defeated Chinese Taipei in extra innings 2-1 on Sunday to win the Little League World Series championship. And one of the assistant coaches is a former UCF legend, UCF Hall of Famer Kyle Bono. You may remember him from, Kyle and his brother Ryan were both on UCF. They were both all ASUN performers, and they were a battery together. Kyle was the pitcher. Ryan was a catcher. And Kyle was an assistant coach for this team in Lake Mary that went on to win the Southeast region, get to Williamsport, and rolled through the national bracket. We're recording this on Monday night. They arrived today at OIA to great fanfare. Lake Mary is the center of the Little League Baseball universe now, apparently, all of a sudden. Shout out to Kyle Bono and his group of players. Now he's an assistant coach, but obviously, not a bad guy to be taking pitching lessons from if you're in Little League. Ain't that right, Bryson Turner?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And let's not forget also that Kyle's son, Landon, is on the team as a catcher. Taking up your uncle's footsteps at his position with your dad being able to train you via pitching is, I would say, quite an ideal scenario when it comes to a young up-and-coming catcher.
Kyle Bono. Hope we see him around at some point soon. All right. Let's dive around the world of UCF sports real quick. We have one sport opening this week. Volleyball gets underway Saturday. They are at Virginia Tech for 2 matches against the hometown Hokies at 5 p.m. on Saturday, and then they're at Charlotte. That's right. They're playing Charlotte in Charlotte the following day at 3 p.m. on Sunday, September 1st. Bryson has the volleyball preview coming this week on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Kyle.
No, I had my volume off.
Oh my gosh.
Turners away.
All right. I'm going to have to take this back. I'm going to have to take the wand back from you now.
All the ones you missed. Eric Lopez was dressing me down.
I would be pressing. Listen, you have to do is literally press a button. I got like a thing that's like laggy over here. That's not working. Anyway.
Hey, I have the same thing on the student of the game. You don't hear me complaining. Well, I voice act. That's different.
Nonetheless. Bryson, real quick, real quick outlook on Virginia Tech and Charlotte for UCF volleyball as they're coming off what was looking like a really surprising year, and then they hit the hard part of the schedule.
Well, the good news is that this time around, not only is their schedule more forgiving of them, but they also have a better offseason to prepare, because let's remember that Jenny Maurer was promoted to the head coaching position in the spring, which is not
relatively late.
Right. And then they immediately had to go abroad to Europe for a tour of Europe. So this was definitely
not a bad onboarding, by the way, Jenny. Congratulations on that.
True. But this did mean that she had to assemble her staff and do a bunch of other, head coaching off-season duties in a very protracted amount of time. This time around, she had a full off-season to do that. She brought in another assistant coach. And now that she actually had a lot more time to really work with this team. And by the way, you don't have to worry about replacing McKenna Melville at outside hitter. This time you just have to worry about replacing both of your middle blockers, which certainly isn't an easy task, but I would argue it's relatively easier than figuring out how your offense is going to work without McKenna Melville.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, we will have a good look at the talent on that roster right off the bat. And I think everyone is really going to enjoy seeing the new middle blocker, Alexia Kuhl, who came in from Colorado, 6'7". She can play, man. She's going to be fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Let's go over to soccer real quick. A couple of key matchups for both the men and the women. Checking in on the women right off the bat, they drew Florida 2-2. Second straight draw. They also tied Utah Valley on Thursday 1-1 at home. So the Knights currently have 1 win, no losses, and 2 draws before they play Georgia on Sunday. At 6 p.m. and that will be at home. That's number 16 Georgia coming in. So another SEC opponent, Bryson. Obviously not the ideal situation to come in off a draw with Florida. We've had Florida's number of late. But they did get UCF did lead this game twice, 1-0 and then 2-1. Before Florida got it, was able to tie it up. They got 11 shots off in the second half against us. Overall evaluation right now, what are the odds heading into the Georgia game?
Well, I think that with an evaluation of this team wouldn't be complete without talking about how much of a explosion that Chloe Netzel is off to right now. She has 5 goals after just 3 matches. To put
this is Kristen Scott territory, ain't it, Eric?
Oh no, this isn't even Kristen Scott territory. This is Eric. Eric and I were talking about this. This is one the best start to a season for a UCF women's soccer goal scorer, I would say, in recent memory, as far as I can remember. To put this in perspective, Chloe Netzel had 7 goals all of last season. That's 17 matches that she played in. She's now gotten 5 in the first 3. I mean, this is offensive production taken to another level. And so now, on the one hand, this is cool to watch, but the other part is Chloe Netzel can't carry this entire team on her back, especially going up against a team like Georgia. Yeah. So they're also going to be without Guda Franke, who left to join the Brazil roster for the U20 FIFA Women's World Cup. She played in the first 2 matches against FAU and Utah Valley, but now she's gone. And goalkeeper Genesis Perez Watson has been gone, preparing for that tournament with Team Costa Rica. So that, and now which has true freshman Sammy Lipkin at the goalkeeper right now, trying to kind of hold down the fort and maybe try to prove herself there. And it's unfortunate to see her give up 2 goals. That go 2 goals there, but this is also the type of thing, you got to go through this with a true freshman goalkeeper. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited with what I've seen from Chloe Netzel, but this is going to be a very big test going to face Georgia.
Yeah. On the other side, the men's team, they tied Seattle, number 23 ranked Seattle University, 1-1 at home. This is after they got the win over Mercer on opening night, 3-1. They have their biggest non-conference game coming up on Saturday against number 15 Wake Forest. This is the kind of game. Now, last year they had, I forget who it was they played last year, that I think it was Clemson. They beat Clemson. That vaulted them up into the national conversation right off the bat. And that kind of set the table for them to eventually get that number 1 ranking, which they did toward the end of the year. This is the kind of game that can be a springboard for that. Disappointing to get a draw against Seattle at home. Obviously, you want to bring home a dub, but a tie is better than a loss, I guess you could say. So what's the outlook for them? 7:00, by the way, on Saturday against Wake Forest.
Yes, this coming off of Seattle, it's unfortunate. It was a bit of a mistake that ended up giving Seattle that goal. It gives a little bit of a damper on a first career goal from redshirt freshman Drew Hansen. So well done on his part. But that being said, Juanvi Munoz did redeem himself because Seattle got a penalty kick late in the competition, and he ended up getting the save, which is absolutely heads up play. And I actually saw somebody like on Twitter talking about this. It's like, man, we could have won 1-0, but we also very much could have lost 2-1. So it's almost like we kind of broke even in this one with Seattle. And look, it's a top 25 game. Seattle's 23. They're no slouch either. I know you're hyping up Wake Forest, Jeff, but Seattle's no slouch either. And I would certainly rather come away at this with a draw rather than a loss. That being said, having this competition is very important to do that. Coach Calabrese kind of said so as much, which you can see the full post-game interview of on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel.
There you go.
And going into a matchup against Wake Forest that Coach Calabrese kind of broke down essentially what he remembers from Wake Forest, and they are a very similar team to UCF, and they are a very good team. But this time they're coming to our house. So
yeah,
winningest men's soccer.
15.
Winningest men's soccer program in college soccer in the last decade is Wake Forest.
Yep.
That's what comes in.
15, by the way, is low for them, isn't it?
They're low. They got some young players. So as it turns out, I will be calling that match for ESPN.
Hey,
cheap plug. Where's the bell? Where's the bell?
Halo. All right. Well, let's set the alarm here. What do we got here? We've got 7:00 ESPN Plus on Saturday, right?
That's correct. 7:00 ESPN
right.
Plus. Look, this is a big match. You could make the argument it's the biggest non-conference home game UCF's ever hosted in men's soccer. Wake Forest, like I said, winningest program in men's soccer the last decade. They've got a player that's going to end up playing professionally. MLS.
Probably got a few,
fantastic,
actually.
Yeah. And they're just a little young. They have the number 1 recruiting class in the country, according to Top Soccer Drawer. So they're a little younger this year. But you look at Saturday, Sunday, we're going to learn a lot about both UCF men's soccer and women's soccer. The men hosting Wake Forest is huge. Women's host Georgia, who returns a lot of firepower, one of the best offenses in college soccer. Yep. They've got College Cup aspirations themselves. So you're going to learn a lot about both teams, the men and the women, this weekend. It's a great weekend. If you love soccer, go check out UCF men's soccer against Wake Forest, and then women's against Georgia. I'm not involved on the broadcast on Georgia, but I still encourage you to go to that. But I will be on the call for the Wake Forest match. But it's huge weekend. And we'll see how the UCF responds there. Wake Forest had a setback against VCU, but this is good stuff. This is really good stuff from this weekend coming up here at the soccer track clips.
I hope you have your diaphragm ready, Lopez, for that goal call when that happens. I'm just saying.
I'm prepared, man. Listen, I'm a professional. I am custom. I'm used to being in the booth for a long time, and trust me, that soccer track press box, there is no room.
So, right.
As well. I just holding that goal. That's effort, man.
Well, Kyle, what you're expecting from Erica a sort of Andres Contour level.
Not that far.
I'm just saying, I mean, he can do it. I don't have any doubt about that.
I'm just
gotta let the play out. Gotta let it play out. I can't.
So this is what we got. We got football Thursday night. We will be, you guys will be live on Night Shift. Jake will be joining Eric. Kyle and Bryson will be will be on the field to get things started. But Eric and you and Jake will be there to get things started. Also, shout out to UCF Cross Country. They got to meet 6 p.m. on Friday, so their season starts as well on the UCF Cross Country course, which is actually across the way. It's over by the Arboretum near across the street from the football stadium. So we'll be seeing their first results of the year. And then, of course, Saturday, volleyball opens their season at Virginia Tech at 5. You can catch Eric on ESPN Plus for UCF men's soccer against number 15 Wake Forest at 7 on Saturday. And then, of course, we have Sunday men's golf is getting underway at the Island Resort Collegiate in Harris, Michigan. And then, of course, we have volleyball at Charlotte at 3.
That's right.
And then
season podcast, special
We're
edition
off and running,
podcast
baby.
preview for volleyball will be
Yep.
me and Bryson broke down the team in depth.
That'll be in your feed later this. Actually, I'm hoping
Yep.
to get that thing up possibly as early as tomorrow evening. So
He means
after that-
Tuesday morning, everybody. For those that are listening right now, probably Tuesday morning.
You're
So-
stealing a bing from my friend Bryson, who's going to have a season preview for the cross country group on the Black and Gold Banner
Oh.
YouTube channel as well. So,
And also, don't forget women's soccer against number 16 Georgia Sunday night at 6 p.m. ESPN Plus as well. That's going to do it for us. Make sure you follow us at Black and Gold Banneret.
I wasn't ready for you.
Oh my gosh.
Kyle.
Black.
Use
Let's
it
try that again.
.com. You got to
Black
say .com.
blackandgoldbanneret.com.
Thank
Your
you.
home for UCF on SB Nation. You can follow us on social media. We are on Instagram and Threads at Black and Gold Banneret. We're also Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret and UCF Banneret_SBN on X. Don't forget our YouTube channel as well. And make sure you subscribe to us if you don't already on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us this week as we get ready for football. For Eric, for Bryson, for Kyle, the student of the game, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for listening. Go Knights, charge on. We will see you for the volleyball preview later this week. And then Thursday night, we will all see you at UCF against New Hampshire. Until then, go Knights, charge on. See you then.